Hello everyone, my name is Chris, and today I'd like to talk about an idea that came to me a few years ago and it's been returning to my mind a little bit more recently as well, called the crypto greenhouse, something that I was looking at when I was working on the Feathercoin project many years ago. So it's basically a way of combining cryptocurrency mining like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., with the organics and the ability to take the excess heat generated by the miner that's processing transactions on the Bitcoin network, and using that heat to turn it into utility. And in particular, in this 3D CAD drawing that I've mocked up, I'm trying to demonstrate here the ability to desalinate and distill dirty water from things like sewage, or you could use rainwater. Um, and in particular, tap water suffers from problems like contamination with high levels of estrogen, for example, because of women that are on birth control pills. It's very difficult to get that out of the water because it's aromatic. You can't simply boil it away. And I've been doing some research on Google and found that actually there were organic and natural ways of doing this. And when I talk about heat, I think of heat similarly to a physicist. So I think of heat as information. It's just the universe is information and it needs to be directed. I think of the human condition as being one of stewardship of nature. So it's like we are basically guiding it. And in some ways, what I'm trying to create with this project is, like we are in many ways defined by our littering and our detritus and our flotsam and our jetsam, and we have all these ideas and unfinished projects because we're never quite where we want to be. We're always displaced. We're never quite at home, and as a result, we often leave, a remnants. Whereas animals build this kind of equilibrium with their environment that I find very elegant and very beautiful. And perhaps there is something, extraterrestrial about us, some way of, the brain is a kind of an antenna. Maybe we're in touch with something that isn't quite here yet, but yet we want to bring it into the present nevertheless. As a result, though, what we do is we create litter, we create excesses. And so what I'm trying to do is take the kind of the global, you know, currencies, these new cryptocurrencies that kind of bring the world together, and try and see if I can't put all of the excess energy and the heat, the so-called waste product, and then turn that back into something good. And I think in some sort of strange way, this project is actually more organic than we are, because it has this equilibrious quality of, we could make this out of old tools, old Bitcoin miners, and we could even build wind turbines out of, old vacuum cleaners and things. And then for the whole thing to return back to nature, to pay for itself like an animal does, this notion of decomposition, in many ways, in spite of our sort of extraterrestrial imaginations, the very artifact, the artifice and the art ends up being more organic than its creator. So briefly, this is the Bitcoin white paper. I've jumped straight to my favorite section, which is section 6 on the incentives. You can just type in Bitcoin white paper into your favorite search engine. It will come right up, written by Satoshi Nakamoto in around 2008-9. And here he outlines the incentive structure, which is essentially that Bitcoin makes it, it incentivizes honesty more than fraud. So you are rewarded more for being honest than you are for being dishonest. And as a result, he says that you ought to be incentivized to play by the rules. That when everyone plays by the same set of instructions, because Bitcoin is open source, that what you get is this kind of emergent phenomena where transactions can be processed, and actors, in fact, at the beginning, he has this wonderful line at the end of the abstract: messages, and that means economic claims, spending of your Bitcoins. Messages are broadcast on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. I can demonstrate that more succinctly with this famous painting by Norman Rockwell called Freedom from Fear. And you can see what's happening here is that the children are being tucked up in bed and the parents are putting them to sleep, but notice a few things, like notice that the father is like holding the newspaper. Why? Because he's keeping an eye on things whilst his children are tucked away. Whilst we look the other way, things can happen in that darkness, things that are dangerous. And I think what Satoshi was trying to do was, in his own words, create a single history, something that we could all agree on, even if we're not in attendance all of the time. And so I think that this sort of janitorial role that miners take when they're processing transactions and they're confirming things, they're confirming the sequence of activities in the world, the sequence of economic activities in the world. Because you get this excess of heat, I think that the only way that we can make Bitcoin mining profitable is by reutilizing and repurposing that heat as information and using it to clean water, to grow certain plants. There have been other projects like this one called CureCoin, which does protein folding at the same time as mining, although it's not perfect. The maths isn't perfect, but it works. It's available. We can do that. This was an article I found on estrogen, how you remove it using a certain type of fungus that grows on dead trees. They're mushrooms, that's what they are. So yeah, turkey tails, that's what they're called. So in terms of the hardware, as I was saying, this is Antminer. A lot of these miners now go very, very cheaply secondhand because they're no longer profitable. And that's because the Bitcoin mining algorithm isn't designed to be profitable. It's designed to be marginally profitable if you are very good at, getting the equipment, selling it at the right time, buying it at the right time, getting cheap electricity, sometimes siphoning electricity illegitimately. But actually these miners can be purchased, and doing a sort of back of the envelope kind of calculation the other day, I kind of worked out that you could probably run one of these things at a loss, at a sort of a loss in terms of the Bitcoin mining. But if you were providing utility at the same time by purifying water, you would have a net gain. And so that was basically the idea there. And you can also get, so that miner there that I showed you, that was about 300 watts. It was about £100. But you can also get wind turbines that are around 300 watts, around the same wattage, that you can then plug into an uninterrupted power supply unit, a UPS, a battery, so that you have latency. If the wind isn't quite so high at certain periods, it's okay. It'll still power the miner. And finally, I wanted to also talk about VPNs, because one of the interesting properties of being a miner isn't just that you're confirming transactions, it's also that you're a full node. And as a full node, you can provide services. You can provide services to merchants, for example. And with the help of something like a VPN, like this one, a pure VPN, what you can actually do is pipe yourself into any number of countries, particularly where there is a lack of full Bitcoin nodes. So if you're running a full Bitcoin node with a Raspberry Pi plugged into a Bitcoin miner, you can actually pipe into through Ethiopia, and then you are now servicing people in Ethiopia as a full Bitcoin node. And if you are part of a large enough pool, perhaps we could set up our own, crypto pool, a World Crypto Network pool, or I don't know, friends of the World Crypto Network, could all join together, and we can actually do things like we can say, well, we will mine transactions with lower fees exclusively to these particular people. And as a result, it helps with the distribution as well. So I think that's everything I wanted to say. Thanks very much for your time. I'll just finish up with that. So you have the miner here, you have the water tank here, and obviously that would be a pipe. I just didn't know how to use CAD software. and that's the greenhouse, and then you have the soil here. And the soil actually is also another thing you can get. You can buy these kind of worms, special worms that do some really cool things in the soil, and it basically just this is a condenser here in the top, this orange thing. So the water evaporates because of the heat. You can grow hemp, although not legally in this country, but you can grow hemp, and so you can do all kinds of really cool things. So yeah, I'm running out of space, so I better end this now. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.